638, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. What an incredible sunrise that you are missing, Congressman Scott DesJarlais. Thank you for joining us here on Super Talk 99.7, assuming you're in Washington, D.C.
No, it's not sunny here either, so.
No, it is like a blood red sky. It's beautiful orange color, amazing sunrise this morning. Lots to talk about as far as news goes, so let's get right to it. We know that President Biden weighing his options to retaliate against Iran for their proxies killing our 3 members of the military. Now, I'm hearing everything from cyber attacks to taking out their ships in the Persian Gulf. Have you heard of a timeline or options? I feel like the world is sort of waiting for this.
No, we're kind of left in the dark. I'll have a classified briefing later today in a few hours, and hopefully we'll learn a little bit more about what our options are. But it needs to be decisive. You know, Biden has let things fester. Ukraine happened probably because of weakness. North Korea is threatening war again. China continues to ramp up actions in and around Taiwan. We got Iran's proxies attacking us 150 times since October 7th, and he's sending tepid responses at best, and we need something decisive. I don't know why he thinks that appeasement is going to work with any of these adversaries. So I'm hoping that we'll hear something today that will be a true deterrence. If you remember when Trump took out Soleimani, probably the number one leader of the terrorist organizations coming out of Iran, basically their response was to send a few missiles to the outskirts of one of our bases. They have the technology to strike as they did the other day, and they didn't do that. So it wasn't like there was a massive retaliation from Iran. I think that his weakness is just promoting further attacks, and until we do something that shows we're serious, our troops are going to continue to be put at risk.
Yeah, and I want to play you something, Congressman, from Corinne Jean-Pierre. This was yesterday. A great question and a valid question.
At what point does the president then cut off the money to Iran by stopping or reducing their benefit from oil sales?
I just don't have anything to share on that particular thing.
So she has nothing to share from that particular thing. So
yeah, well, bingo, $6 billion were opened up, and they said, well, they can only be used for humanitarian purposes. Well, guess what? If you have $6 billion to use for humanitarian, the money that you were using can go to terrorist activities. Money's money, and whether they spent the money Biden allowed them to receive from oil sales on the appropriate things, that freed up other money to attack the United States. So his policy has failed, and his actually national policy all around the world is failing. We got to get this in order. We have recruiting issues in the military. We have a military is more focused on wokeism and diversity, equity, and inclusion, and those are things that we've been trying to get cleaned up. Fortunately, we'll be doing another NDAA. Hopefully, we'll get a little more help from the other side of the aisle, and we'll have a new administration to work with to strengthen our military to where we can respond when things like this happen.
Well, let me ask you, this has been a conversation, Congressman Scott DesJarlais joining us. This has been a conversation since day one of the Biden administration. It became more relevant after Hamas attacked Israel. From your vantage point, have you at the very least heard of any possible sanctions that would actually have some teeth in putting Iran back to where they were before Biden took office? When Donald Trump was in office, of course, we really had, our knee on their neck. I mean, they were just, they were broke. Iran was broke as a country. And then Biden comes in, and you just laid it out perfectly about how Biden's appeasement has led to them being able now to afford to fund all of this terrorist activity. Have you heard of any kind of possible sanctions, coming out of the Biden administration or any of the lawmakers that you deal with?
Yeah, amazingly, no, none. I've not heard of any reversal of the policy that's leading to all this, and there's so many things to discuss in terms of going into a 2024 election. It seems like all the talk is about Biden and his health, his capacity, Trump and his problems and his legal issues. But these are things we really need to be focused on. Biden seems more interested in continuing to negotiate the Iran nuclear deal. It may be time for Israel to step up and go in and attack Iran's infrastructure, and then we need to be there to back them up if they do. But somebody's going to have to take decisive action, because this president clearly is not going to do it.
Every time a president, Republican or Democrat, is faced with this type of a situation, you have those calling for the president to consult Congress on military action. The War Powers Resolution demands it in these cases. But there are times when Congress simply is not consulted. My question to you is, are you expecting President Biden to consult with Congress if he takes military action?
Well, the only reason he would do that is so that he could blame Congress or blame Republicans, or he can't make a decision on his own. I'm happy to have them consult us, because I think we could give them some pretty damn good ideas about how to do things. But would he listen to us? No. I mean, it's just like on the border. You know, they continue to blame Republicans for not doing comprehensive immigration reform, and yet they've got all the power to do, or at least undo, the policies that they changed when Biden took office that created the border crisis. Not to flip topics, but I mean, no, I don't think that they have any interest in what we have to say here, although I would be happy to share an opinion with them.
Congressman, I want to play you just a little bit of audio from, of course, Joe Biden.
If that bill were the law today, I'd shut down the border right now and fix it quickly.
Now, of course, I know that you find that as laughable as I do, because he had the ability to shut down the border. He still does have the ability to shut down the border. You know what? I want your opinion on this. I think I know what's going on. I think that he knows that this is not going to, the deal that they're trying to work with the Senate is not going to pass the House. Speaker Mike Johnson has already said it's dead on arrival. Biden knows that this is not going to pass. So he can say that he would shut it down if only the Republicans in the House would allow me to do it. It almost feels like you guys are being set up to take the fall.
Yeah, and he's right. He can shut it down, and he did. If you remember when Title 42 expired, the COVID provision that kept people out of the country because of the fear of bringing in COVID, all the cameras were down there waiting to see the influx of people when Title 42 expired. Well, it didn't happen that day or the next couple of days, because he did shut down the border temporarily. So it proved to me that he has the capability to do it, and I think you're spot on. They always want to blame Republicans for comprehensive immigration reform failures, that we need to have comprehensive immigration reform before we can do anything. Well, you can't have any kind of reform until you close the border and show people that they're not going to get in. And I think today they'll be marking up an impeachment inquiry in Department of Homeland Security with Congressman Mark Green right there in our neighborhood, that will show all of the laws that Mayorkas is breaking. They've done a really good job putting this together, because the fact is, if we followed the current laws that are on the books, none of what's happening that we see every day, this invasion of our southern border, would be happening. But Mayorkas simply refuses to enforce the law, and they'll go through step by step. It might be an interesting hearing to watch, to show all the statutes that he is breaking, and yet they ignore that. They blame Republicans, and this crisis could stop instantly if you would just enforce those laws. But these people are continuing to come. They know that they're going to continue to come. They're depleting all kinds of funding, whether it's our SNAP program, but the House Budget Office has estimated that it's costing between 150 and 200 billion. I would argue it's more, just for the immigrants that have crossed this point. But the hearing, I mean, Mayorkas is really kind of the fall guy for Biden. This is Biden's fault, but Mayorkas is the one in charge, and so I think Mark Green and company will show that Mayorkas is clearly breaking the law and should be impeached.
Yeah, we'll keep folks updated all day long. One of those articles for willful and systemic refusal to comply with the law. The second accusing him of a breach of public trust. It seems to me, Congressman Scott DesJarlais, but both of these do apply. Marjorie Taylor Greene is out there this morning saying that she believes that not one Democrat will vote for this. I tend to believe her, because if one Democrat did vote for it, then they would be able to say that this is, the Republicans would be able to say this is bipartisan. And so that's why they will not get any Democrats to vote for this. What do you think?
I hope she's wrong, because, the one advantage we have is that, I mean, this is the probably number one election or the number one issue of the upcoming elections. Usually it's the economy. It still may be the economy. But there is not a single person in the country that is not aware of this border problem. And Democrats have elections too. So if I'm a Democrat and I'm in one of these states or one of these areas that's being impacted by an overflow or overrun of immigration or illegal immigrants that are taking over their local schools, gymnasiums, or there's crime in the streets or people are being murdered. If you're a Democrat running for re-election and you're voting against things like this, I think you're going to have to answer to your constituents. So I think this is the one area right now the Republicans have incredible leverage on. We should be able to leverage it against any kind of spending bill, any kind of future aid to whether it be Ukraine or other places. This is some things that it crosses party lines. So Democrats ignoring this is at their own peril. This is not a Republican problem. This is a national problem. It's a national security issue. I mean, we're tracking literally hundreds and hundreds of terrorist watch lists, people that we've known. We've caught them at the border. What scares me is the 1.7 million gotaways. Most people want to be apprehended at the border because then they can get the benefits, the welfare. The kids can get the food stamps. They can get their $5,000 Visa cards. They can get their bus tickets, their plane tickets. So most people want to be apprehended because Biden's just releasing them into the country. It's the gotaways that you got to worry about because they don't even want that. They're just getting into the country. And there's literally hundreds of terrorist watch list people. It only takes one or two to cause a catastrophic attack on our country. And so, long answer to a short question, Democrats ought to be equally concerned, and they're going to have to answer their voters. So I hope Marjorie's wrong in the committee on DHS. Maybe they won't, but if we get legislation to the floor, I think it's going to be very hard. And we do have some Democrats that are speaking out against Biden and his policies. So we'll see. I can't remember who's on that committee, if we have any of the Democrats that are speaking out against Biden or not. But let's hope she's wrong, because this definitely is a bipartisan issue, and it's a national issue that we can win on because, I mean, clearly this is a massive, catastrophic problem.
It is, and we'll leave it there. But very much appreciate you joining us here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.